What's up, everybody? Gajewski here, back again talking college football. And today we are discussing SMU ahead of the 2025 season. If you like this content, please leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. All that helps a ton. You'd be shocked even what a like will do towards getting this video in front of other people as we try to grow. So thank you. If I miss anything, please let me know in the comments. We're recording this early, so even if it's just something to clarify, please let me know. Always looking for the feedback. Let's dive into SMU's roster as we go through our team breakdowns through the offseason. Eventually, we'll get to win totals and everything like that. But here are the efficiency metrics from SMU last year in a double-digit win season, runner-up in the ACC. They go to the college football playoff. They lose to Penn State, but still phenomenal year for this team. And it makes sense. The efficiency metrics for this team are pretty good across the board on defense. Might surprise you, basically top 20 everywhere. And the only place that was slightly outside that mark was coverage. They were 23rd. Offensively, they end up 27th. Only place that really trailed was the run game at times. That was a unit that was definitely banged up outside of Brashard Smith. But still, honestly, what they were able to overcome on offense despite injuries was pretty phenomenal. Savion Byrd was hurt throughout the year in the offensive line, played through it. RJ Maryland went down early. Jake Bailey was hurt. Romello Brinson. They took all that in stride. Running backs, too. They took all that in stride and still finished as a playoff caliber team, which now Rhett Lashlee has put up 2 consecutive years. He's in year 4. His record is 29-12 with the program. First double-digit season came in the AAC. They make the jump up to the ACC, win double digits again, head to the college football playoff, and lose to Penn State. No shame there. It was actually the only loss they took by more than 3 points all season. The Clemson game and the BYU field goal fest from early in the year were a field goal loss apiece. Games they won that were close. They did have a few single-digit games, but you can sort of write off all of them, or at least some of them. Nevada, 29-24. That was a Preston Stone start. He was a disaster in that game. Duke, they won by 1 point, 28-27. They had 6 turnovers and still won. Louisville was close. It was a touchdown game that they won. But Louisville was a good team. I don't think there's any shame there. All this to say, the product Rhett Lashlee has put on the field has been phenomenal through his first 3 years, and it's wheels up for this program. Offensive coordinators, technically Casey Woods. They do list Rob Likens and Garen Justice as co-OCs. But Rhett Lashlee calls the plays. Won't belabor that point. It's Rhett Lashlee's offense. Defensive coordinator is Scott Simons. He previously was the DC with Liberty, but they do list Ricky Hunley Jr. and Maurice Crum Jr. as co-DCs. Just something that a few teams do. They like to promote guys, give them different titles. It's Scott Simons. Defense. Let's look at recruiting and talent acquisition. It is all over the board, but part of the reason I think it's improving, 1 is your jump up in conference. You have more resources. 2, it's just you've been super successful. There's no reason for them not to start recruiting at a higher level, considering they were just in the playoff. They're putting guys in the pros. It is what it is. The weird blip on the radar was this 2024 recruiting class that was 106th. The weird thing with that is they only took 10 commits. So it was never going to be a class that was super highly ranked. It was last in the ACC. They just chose to go the transfer portal route more than anything else that season. SMU has a lot more resources than some teams, but they're still not unlimited. This is not Alabama we're talking about. They have been top 40 in the transfer portal in each of the last 3 seasons. Well, this year they're 41. The year prior, in 24, they were 32nd, and then in 23, they were 13th. So they're getting good players one way or another. Either their recruiting classes are up at the top, transfer class a little low, or vice versa. It is what it is. Retention for this team is pretty good overall. And I mentioned last year's class having 10 commits because, you lose 4 guys and suddenly you're at a 60% retention. That's just what happens when you're taking in a smaller class overall compared to what other teams are doing. But overall talent acquisition improving for SMU, another feather in the cap of Rhett Lashlee. Let's look at the roster itself as we get into what to expect this season. Here is our 2-deep depth chart for SMU. Transfers are in yellow. We have the year they are in school, how many snaps they played the last 2 years, recruiting ranking in terms of star value, that's a consensus, and then a value score, which looks first at your recruitment, and then the more snaps you play, the less it looks at recruiting, the more it looks at on-field play, trying to normalize across positions and show you how valuable a player actually is to the team. So with SMU, a team on the rise, most certainly our wagon of the year last year, which means the team we won the most money on. At the quarterback position, they have continuity. Kevin Jennings is back. We mentioned they started Preston Stone to begin the year. It went poorly. So Jennings didn't play the full season as a starter, but he played quite a bit. He completed 65% of his passes, 3,245 yards. That was 8.5 yards per attempt, 23 touchdowns, 11 picks, 20 big-time throws, 14 turnover-worthy plays. He finished as the 17th most efficient QB in football, and that includes rushing production. He had 354 yards on the ground. That was second on SMU in total rushing. Pressure to sack ratio, 12.5%. Basically, when he's under pressure, he's not taking sacks and not taking negative plays. Time to throw, below 3 seconds, very good. He's a guy that'll get the ball out fast. And they somehow were able to go out and retain depth, not with Preston Stone. He transferred out, but they went and they brought in Tyler Van Dyke from Wisconsin. And this might raise some eyebrows for people. Van Dyke did not have a great showing with the Badgers. It was a very short showing before he got hurt. He actually had a good season in 2023 with Miami. 66% completion, over 2,700 yards, 8.5 yards per attempt, 19 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Not really a runner, but he does have familiarity with Rhett Lashley. Rhett Lashley was the OC at Miami in between his stints at SMU, and he played with Van Dyke. They played together. Coached and played, I should say. So that's solid continuity that you already have with the system. They also added a 4-star freshman in Ty Hawkins. This is a very good QB room. You could argue it is at the top of the ACC. I think the only thing that might keep it just a step below is you have Cade Klubnik returning, multiple-year starter, and Carson Beck transferring in. There will be some argument back and forth, I'm sure, between people there. At running back, Brashard Smith is gone. They also lose LJ Johnson and Jalen Knighton to transfer. They had a 4-star coming in last year. He's now a redshirt freshman. They were able to preserve that. It is Derek McFall. The only concern I really have with him is he played small last year at 183 pounds. He's 5'11". I imagine he's a little bit heavier this year, but still, like ideally, you're probably not looking at a workhorse back. SMU has tried not to use workhorses. They've just been very unfortunate with injuries in the past couple seasons. But he was efficient when he had the ball. Just didn't get to see him a lot in that redshirt freshman season, or that freshman season. Now he's a redshirt freshman. They bring in 2 transfers to help, I'm guessing, shoulder the load. One is TJ Harden from UCLA. He's 6'2", 215. Another guy who you might look at and just think, oh, this isn't very exciting. 124 rushes, 506 yards, 4.1 yards per carry. Did catch 40 passes. That UCLA offense was an absolute train wreck under Eric Bieniemy. In 2023, he actually averaged over 5.3 yards per carry, still caught 19 passes, so a good pass catcher. I think he'll complement what we see out of McFall. And then they brought in Chris Johnson Jr. from Miami, he hasn't played a lot so far in his career. He's been Miami's main kick returner, but he only has 17 rushes, still 6.1 yards per carry and 9 catches. Good efficiency for a back coming into the program. They also added 4-star freshman Andrew Green. He has played a little bit in the spring. I think that's just because not everyone was on campus yet from transfers, but still, reps are good for a young player like that. Running back room, I think, is quietly very good, considering they lost a NFL draft pick, now a 7th rounder, but still, they did lose one. Wide receiver, they lose 3 of their top 4 pass catchers at the wide receiver position, but they do return Jordan Hudson, and we mentioned already, this was a very injured unit. Hudson was a 4-star, originally with TCU, caught 39 balls for 422 yards last year, 6'1", 191, perimeter receiver, 1.65 yards per route last year, but he was at 2.19 in 23. This is a good place to start. He's going to play the perimeter. Then you have Romello Brinson, a former 4-star with Miami. He played in just 6 games last year due to injury. 6'2", 186, another perimeter receiver. He caught 28 balls for 431 yards back in 23. That was at 2.06 yards per route. You have good 2 perimeter receivers. And then they went out and added Ymir Knight from James Madison, Dylan Goffney from Colorado State. Knight's going to be a slot receiver. He's 5'8", 180, 53 catches for 605 yards with James Madison. And Goffney is 6 feet, 210 pounds. Previously spent 2 years with SMU before going out to Colorado State, where he really struggled to get on the field. I think he's the most likely to get replaced. He's another slot receiver. And they do have some depth. This is now a team recruiting better, so a couple of these highly recruited players, 4-star freshmen, are at wide receiver. Jalen Cooper, Dalen Singleton, both in this class. They also have a couple high 3-stars in Carterius Brown and Isaiah Robertson. I wouldn't be surprised if any of those 4 usurp Goffney or maybe even a Ymir Knight who's coming from the Sun Belt. Basically, with Rhett Lashley's offense, a lot of things are going to run from 4 wide. How they compose that, I think, is up for debate. I'm thinking you see Brinson and Hudson on the perimeter. My lean is Ymir Knight in one of the slot spots. And one thing we've seen them do recently is use a lot more tight end in the slot. So that sets up RJ Maryland or Matthew Hibner. But one thing they could do as well is play 12 personnel and use 2 tight ends. RJ Maryland is basically a big slot receiver anyway, 6'4", 237. He caught 24 balls last year for 359 yards before going down with injury in 7 games. But he also put up 518 receiving yards in 23. And he's already playing in the slot 57% of the time. His career yards per route is very good. And last year, he was at 2.74 before injury. Also an above average blocker, which is, it was surprising to me considering his size and where he plays. But that injury also allowed Matthew Hibner, their 4-star Michigan transfer, to play nearly 700 snaps. Definitely more of a blocker than Maryland, but he still caught 24 balls. And honestly, I was surprised by his slot rate, 53% as well. They also returned Stone Ebby for very specific packages. He's 260 pounds. He's basically a 6 offensive lineman, but he's back. All of this gives a lot of options. And I say this because, one, I think the wide receivers will be fine. I like the 4-star freshman. The only player I really have much concern with is Goffney. And if you can't, for some reason, get those players to maximize their talent right away, they're young or transferring up, you have the options at tight end to maybe play 2 if you need to. So as far as the entire pass catching core, including the tight ends, I think it's in a pretty good spot for SMU this season. Offensive line, very good unit last year, better pass blocking. They lost 2 of their top 3 in Ja'Kai Clark and Justin Osborne, but they do return 3 full-time starters, and they have a lot of options. Left tackle, former Oklahoma 4-star Savion Byrd is back. Last year was his first year starting. Interestingly, he played guard for a little bit, like very early in the season, and then they moved him to left tackle where he played the rest of the season, struggled at times, allowed 21 pressures, which actually grades out below average in the efficiency metrics. But I watched a lot of SMU games just having a lot of money on them. This guy was hurt so many times. He was playing through it. There were games where he would get hurt multiple times in the same game and come back out there. And then the other nuance is 6 of the 21 QB pressures that were allowed against him came against Penn State. Who played on Penn State? Abdul Carter. Yeah, that'll happen. So I think it was quietly a better season for Byrd than a lot of people are saying. It seems to be pretty mixed on him. I'll say this. I still think there's hope that he can be a stalwart for your team and should be a strength. Left guard, Texas 4-star Logan Parr is back. He has started for SMU for 2 straight years now. Took a little bit of a step back as a run blocker last year, but man, is he an elite pass blocker from this position. Only 10 pressures, no sacks. What a phenomenal player Logan Parr is. At center and right guard, they add some transfers. I don't know who is going to play what. Technically, both these guys were centers, but they have a little bit of guard experience. Joshua Bates is a 4-star Oklahoma transfer. He only started 2 games last year with Oklahoma. He was pretty bad when he was out there, but he's still really young. I mean, we really just need some development with him. And then at right guard, Addison Nichols comes in from Arkansas. Previously of Tennessee, he started at center for Arkansas last year and only allowed 13 pressures, so another good player. Has played guard before, which is why we have him tentatively slotted in at right guard. I think you could flip these guys around on the interior if you wanted to. Right tackle, they returned former Texas A&M 4-star PJ Williams. He was the best lineman on the team. Played nearly 1,000 snaps, 18 pressures, 1 sack all year, great in the run game. You have stalwarts, I think, at both tackle positions. I maybe am projecting a little bit for Byrd, but Williams has already shown it. And then if for whatever reason someone gets hurt or maybe, Byrd is not as good as I think he is, they go out and they add Zion Nelson from Miami. He hasn't played since 2022. In that season, he only played 61 snaps. But he goes back to 2019. He's had some medical red shirts. He started 32 games. He has nearly 2,500 snaps in his career. It's just been a long time since we've seen him. But he played 900 snaps in 21, only allowed 15 pressures with Miami. Obviously, the familiarity with Lashley. Wouldn't be surprised if he kicks into one of the interior positions, but he's been a left tackle throughout his career. We'll see if they can do anything with him. Former Arkansas four-star Andrew Chambly still on the team. They have a four-star tackle in Draymond Odoms coming in. The interior is a little weaker than the tackle position, but that doesn't mean you couldn't move a tackle inside in a pinch as well. Defense. They lose a little bit more on defense. They lose their top two edges, Elijah Roberts and Jafari Harvey. However, they played such a deep rotation last year that I'm honestly not that worried. Cameron Robertson and Isaiah Smith both played over 450 snaps on the edge. Both of them actually had exactly 35 QB pressures, and both of them are pretty strong run defenders. Size-wise, 250 pounds, 245 pounds. These are the two main contributors in SMU's rotation, already above average. Expecting big things from Cameron Robertson and Isaiah Smith this year. And if for whatever reason there's an injury, they want to continue the rotation, they bring in four transfers. Trey Wilson from Baylor, DJ Warner from Kansas, Akeel Washington from South Alabama, and Ja'Kai Lang from Missouri. Wilson's more of an inside-out player. He's 275. Didn't play that well last year with Baylor, but maybe they could kick him into tackle. Warner's a four-star redshirt freshman now. Played with Kansas last year, 202 below-average snaps, but that was largely because of missed tackles, which were a little bit of a problem. Washington played 4 years with Liberty, so he has continuity with the DC. Transferred to South Alabama last year. 27 pressures was great for him. And then Lang is just pretty experienced, but he comes from Missouri. Inside, they lost 4 of their top 5 defensive tackles, including stud Jared Harrison Hunt. They like to rotate. Their only notable returner is Jonathan Jefferson, who played 290 snaps. He's a former Georgia four-star, good run defense numbers. He's 315 pounds. They clearly have a type. They added a lot of 300-pounders in the portal. Jeffrey Emba from Purdue, Terry Webb from Texas State, DeMarge Lewis from Purdue, Kevianta Spears from Memphis, and William Spencer from Louisville. Emba is a former Auburn four-star, played the last 2 years with Purdue. That defense was just so bad, but he's 300 pounds. I don't think he's as bad as the defense overall. I'm just expecting going from Purdue to SMU, the increase in coaching should be good for a former four-star who wasn't always as bad as last year. DeMarge Lewis, I don't think we really got to see enough of him. He is 300 pounds, but his career has been injury-riddled, so hopefully he can just get on the field. Terry Webb from Texas State, 2-year starter there, 310 pounds, elite run defender. Also had 25 pressures, a little bit surprising. Kevianta Spears is 297. Only played in rotation last year after he played 469 snaps the year prior, largely an average guy. And then even Spencer, he's a 305-pound redshirt sophomore, only 58 snaps to his name. This defensive line is definitely retooled. They lost a lot, but man, they went out and added a lot of players. It's a good combination of low-level experience versus inexperienced high-level talent via recruiting. I'm not sure they're going to be top 20 again this year, but I'm also not expecting a large step back. This is a good D-line. Linebacker, a few more questions. They lose their top 2, Ahmad Walker and Kobe Wilson. That leaves Alexander Kilgore as the most experienced player. He has 686 snaps over the last 2 years. He's played above average on them, too. Last year, he had 56 tackles without starting a game, which is pretty impressive. I think he's a good place to start. Then they added Zaki Barker from East Carolina. He was second on their team in tackles with 86, led the team with TFLs at 12, and also only 88 yards in his coverage. If you're wondering why his score on the screen is not as high as maybe you would think, considering those numbers, I was certainly surprised. The answer is he missed 16 tackles. You clean up the missed tackles a little bit, and Zaki Barker is going to be an awesome starter for this team. And then the rest of the position, I'm honestly not sure. They have the oft-injured 3-star senior Justin Medlock still on the team. DB, linebacker, hybrid, Brandon Mianzano, Brandon Booker's on the team. I think the depth will be determined over the summer. Clearly not as deep as some other positions like the D-line, but I like what they have up top. Defensive backfield, they lose 3 starting DBs, Jonathan McGill being the biggest loss. At the boundary corner, they do have former Texas A&M four-star Deuce Harmon back, only allowed a 44% completion, 7 PBUs, 1 pick, great place to start. Opposite him, I think you're going to see Jalen Davis Robinson. He played 363 snaps, started 5 games last year, but he was definitely behind Harmon in coverage. 17 catches on 30 targets. That turned into 303 yards and 3 touchdowns. His only on-ball production was a single pass breakup. So they brought in a little competition. Marcellus Barnes comes in from Syracuse, also inexperienced, just maybe to drive that position towards some success. Those are your two main corners. I'm honestly not sure who's going to play the nickel. SMU is a pair of safeties coming back, and honestly, the most experienced slot player is one of those safeties. That would be Ahmad Moses, who played 552 snaps last year at an elite level, but some of those came in the slot, at least more than any other player. He had 92 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 5 PBUs, 3 INTs. I mean, this guy was unbelievable. He's one of the best players on the team, and you can honestly say that about his running mate, Isaiah Nokobia. He played 853 snaps, 100 tackles, 2 PBUs, 3 INTs, a little bit worse in coverage at 77%, but Moses and Nwokobia are 2 elite starters and maybe the 2 best starters on the defense. That's where I would put my money. So as far as the slot goes, if it's not one of those players or one of the corners, there's not much behind him. Former Colorado transfer Jaden Milliner-Jones is there. He played 182 snaps with Colorado in 2023. Most of that was in the slot, so he's a candidate. Otherwise, William Nettles, Kyron Chambers, Jalen Moses, Abdul Muhammad are some players that have got a handful of snaps here or there, but expecting this to be decided throughout the summer. So a little stronger up front, but by no means weak anywhere on the defense or really anywhere on the team. This is a good team. Special teams, they were a little lower than you might expect, 84th. They go out and add some return help. Kicker is not the problem, though. 3-year starter Colin Rogers is back. Made all 52 extra points last year. Has only missed one of his career 177 attempts. Big step back on field goals last year, 24 of 33. But honestly, they have him kicking so deep because his leg is so good. Some of these are just a little less attainable. He made 7 of 11 field goals beyond 50 yards. So yeah, like 4 misses beyond 50 yards. It kind of just is what it is. The only thing that was uncharacteristic is he did miss 2 inside 30. I would blame that on being a fluke, but even with that, he was the 11th most efficient kicker in college football last year. This is a phenomenal special teams unit, especially on the kicking side, which should win them games. But let's see what they play this year. Last year, the schedule wasn't super treacherous, so schedule obviously means a lot when you look at these teams. Non-con is a bit weird. I don't know how they swung this, but they have 2 FCS games, East Texas A&M and Missouri State. Then they play games that aren't easy, but not hard either, versus Baylor and TCU. So non-con is a pretty manageable slate for SMU this season. Obviously, the road trip to TCU would be the one I'm most scared of, but in-state, and obviously a lot of what they're doing is in-state in their non-con. But within conference, it is a hard schedule. They do have to play all 3 of the top teams in terms of postseason odds. That's Clemson, Miami, and Louisville. Clemson's on the road, which is going to be a tough one as well. And as far as the rest of the schedule, they do play 3 of the worst teams, Cal, Wake Forest, and Stanford. It's just a weird way to compose the schedule because when you're looking for postseason, anything like that, like you'd rather play more of the middle class than have this barbell schedule where it's like, all right, we have the three best and the 3 worst. The only middle class teams they play are Boston College and Syracuse. So overall, this sets up as a pretty difficult schedule for SMU comparatively when you see what the rest of the conference is having to play. Very few teams are having to play 3 of the top 4 teams in the top of the odds market, which is just SMU is the other team that is in the top 4. So you can't play yourself, just is what it is. Little unlucky with the top 3, but that's going to give them every opportunity as well to put big games under their belt and potentially repeat for a college football playoff. In my opinion, a little unlikely. I think this team is an 8-9 win team, but they have a ceiling, especially with all their returners. But that'll do it for us today. Let me know who you guys want to see next. Until next time, good luck, everyone. We'll catch you later.